Dear people of the internet, hear my cry. If you think being shirtless and having a mask on TikTok with an edited music video in the background is gonna get you chicks, you're probably gonna be alone when you die. Hello everyone, my name's Stonsey Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. Today we are reading pages, dang it doesn't even tell me the page here. Pages 125, 125 to 144. I'm playing Cookie Clicker. I have an addiction. I have a problem. Yeah, I'm playing Cookie Clicker, so it's like I don't actually know, but no, I got the bad thing. But we're only reading chapter 13, so that's okay. But yeah. Without further ado, because this is one chapter in one fell swoop, let's begin. Chapter 13, Vernal Conclave. Fulcrum City was post-mortal metropolis toward the very center of mid-America. There, by the river, set low between the sky-soaring spires of the grateful city living, was a venerable structure of stone, impressive if not the height than its solidity. Marble columns and arches supported the great copper dome. It was an unyielding homage to ancient Greece and imperial Rome, the birthing grounds of civilization. It was called the Capitol Building, for it was once a state capital, back when there were still states. In those days, before government became obsolete, now it had the honor of holding the administrative offices of Mid-American Scythedom, as well as the casting its conclave 3 times a year. It was pouring rain the day of the vernal conclave. Citra rarely minded the sun, but a day of gloom coupled with a day of pure tension did not sit well with her. But then, a bright sunny day would feel mocking. Citra realized there was no good day to represent the intimidating elegy of Scythes. Fulcrum City was only an hour away from Hypertrain, but, of course, Scythe Faraday saw hypertrains as an unnecessary extravagance. Besides, I want the scenery rather than windowless subterranean tunnel. I'm a human being, not a mole. A standard train took 6 hours, and Citra did enjoy the scenery along the way, although she spent most of the trip studying. Fulcrum City was on the Mississippi River. She recalled that there was once a giant silver arch at the riverbank, but it was gone now, destroyed back in the age of mortality by something called terrorism. She had learned more about the city if she weren't so focused on her poisons and weapons. They had arrived in the evening before Conclave and stayed in the downtown hotel. Morning came too quickly. As Citra, Rowan, and Scythe Faraday walked to their hotel in the awful hour of 6:30 a.m., people in the streets ran to them and handed them umbrellas, choosing to get wet rather than see a siphonous apprentices go without one. Do they know you've taken 2 apprentices instead of 1? Citra asked. Of course they know, said Rowan. Why wouldn't they? But Scythe Faraday's silence on the matter was clear red flag to Citra. You did clear with a high blade, didn't you, Scythe Faraday? I found that with the scythe it was better to ask forgiveness than permission, he told them. Citra gave Rowan an I told you so look, and cocked his umbrella slightly as he didn't have to see it. It will not be a problem, Faraday said, but he didn't sound very convincing. Citra looked at Rowan again, who was longer eclipsed by his umbrella. Am I the only one who's worried about that? Rowan shrugged. We have immunity until Winter Conclave, and it's been revoked. Everyone knows that. Can't be revoked. Everyone knows that. What's the worst they could do? Some scythes arrived at the Capitol building on foot, as they had, other in public cars, some in private cars, several in limousines. There were hopes that hold back spectators on either side of the wide marble staircase leading up to the building, as well as peace officers who were members of the Black Guard, the Scythedom's elite security force. The arriving scythes were protected from the adoring public, even if the public was not protected from them. I despise running the gauntlet, Scythe Faraday said, referring to the climb of the steps to Conclave. It's been worse than it's not raining. The crowd on either side of the dozen people deep. Now it was only half that. It never occurred to Citra that people had come out to see the scythes arriving on Conclave, but all celebrity events drew onlookers. So why was no gathering safe? Some of the arriving scythes gave obligatory rays, others played to the crowd, kissing babies and randomly granting immunity. Citra and Rowan followed Faraday's lead, which was to ignore the crowd completely. There were dozens of other scythes in the entry vestibule. They removed the raincoats to several robes of all colors, all textures. It was a rainbow that summoned forth anything but thoughts of death. This, Citra realized, was intentional. Scythes wished to be seen as many faces of light, not of darkness. Though a grand arch lay grander chamber beneath the central dome, a rotunda where hundreds of Scythes greeted one another, engaging in casual conversation about the elaborate breakfast spread of center. Citra wondered if it was the Scythe talked about. The cools of gleaning, the weather, the chafing of their robes. It's intimidating enough to see the presence of a single Scythe. To be surrounded by hundreds is not going to make one crumble. Scythe Faraday leaned over and spoke to them in a hushed voice. See there? He pointed to the bald, heavily bearded man. Scythe Archimedes, one of the world's oldest living Scythes. He'll tell you that he was here the year of the Condor when the Scythe was first formed, but that's a lie. He's not that old. And over there, he pointed to the woman with long silver hair and the pale lavender robe. That's Scythe Curie, Citra grasped. The Grand Dame of Death? So they say. Is it true she gleaned the last president before Thunderhead was given control? Citra said. And his cabinet, yes. She looked at her, perhaps a bit wistfully, Citra thought. Her actions are quite controversial back in the day. The woman caught them glancing their way and turned to them. Citra chilled when her piercing gray eyes zeroed in on her. Then the woman smiled at the three of them, nodded, and returned to her conversation. There's a group of 4 or 5 Scythes closer to the assembly chamber entrance, the doors of which were closed. They wore bright robes studded with gems. The center of the attention was a Scythe in royal blue whose robe contained appeared to be diamonds. He said something that the others laughed a little too heartily for it to be anything but psychopathic. Who's that? Citra asked. Scythe Faraday's expression took a turn toward sour. That, he said, not trying to hide his distaste, is Scythe Goddard, and his company is best avoided. Goddard? Isn't he the master of mass gleanings? Rowan asked. Faraday looked at him a bit concerned. Where did you hear that? Rowan shrugged. I have a friend who's obsessed with that kind of stuff, and he hears things. Citra grasped, realizing that he heard of Goddard, not by name, but just by deed. Or more accurately, rumor, because there was never any official report. But like Rowan said, you hear things. Is he the one who gleaned an entire airplane? Why? Asked Faraday, giving her a cold, accusing eye. Does that impress you? Citra shook her head. No, the opposite. But she couldn't help but be dazzled by the way the man's robe caught the light. Everyone was, which must have been his intent. And yet, his was not the most ostentatious robe on display. Moving through the crowd was a Scythe with lavishly gilded robe. The man was large. His robe seemed like a bit of a golden tent. Who's the fat guy? Citra asked. He looks important, said Rowan. Indeed, said Scythe Faraday. The fat guy, as you call him, is the High Blade, the most powerful man in mid-American Scythedom. He presides over Conclave. The High Blade worked the crowd and the great gaseous planet, bending space around it. He would have tweaked his nanites to eliminate at least some girth, but clearly he had chosen not to. The choice has been a bold statement in his size, made him an imposing figure. When he saw Faraday, he excused himself for the current conversation and made his way toward him. Honorable Scythe Faraday, always a pleasure to see you. He used his both hands to grip Faraday's, in which was meant to be a heartfelt greeting, but felt forced and artificial. Citra, Rowan, I'd like you to meet High Blade Xenocrates, as Faraday said, then turned back to the large man. These are my new apprentices. He took a moment to praise them. A double apprenticeship? He said jovially. I believe that's a first. Most Scythes have trouble with just one. The better of the two shall receive my blessing for the ring. And the other, said the High Blade, will be sorely disappointed, I'm sure. Then he moved on to the greet other Scythes that were just now coming in from the rain. See, Rowan said, and you were worried. But to Citra, nothing about the man seemed sincere. Rowan was nervous. He just didn't want to admit it. He knew admitting would make Citra more worried, which would make him more worried. So he bit back his fears and misgivings and kept his eyes and ears open, taking in everything that happened around him. His other apprentices there. He overheard 2 of them talking about how the big day, a boy and a girl, both older than him, maybe 18 or 19, would be getting their rings today and become junior Scythes. The girl lamented about how, in the first 4 years, they would have approval selection committee for their gleanings. Every single one, she complained. We're babies. At least the apprenticeship isn't 4 years long, Rowan interjected. As a way to get the conversation, the two looked at him in the mild disgust. I mean, it takes 4 years to get the college degree, right? Rowan knew that was dragging himself deeper, but already committed. At least it doesn't take long to get a license to glean. Who the hell are you? The girl asked. Ignore him, he's just a spat. A what? Rowan had been called many things, but never that. They both smirked at him. Don't you know anything? The girl said. Spat, as in spatula. It's what we call the new apprentices, because you're good for anything but flipping your Scythe's burgers. Rowan laughed at that, which irritated him. Then Citra came up next to him. So if we're spatulas, does that make you safety scissors, or are you just a couple of tools? The boy looked like she might slug Citra. Who is your mentor, Scythe? He asked her. We should have told of this disrespect. I am, said Faraday, putting his hand on Citra's shoulder. And you don't warrant anyone's respect until after you receive your ring. The boy seemed to shrink about 3 inches. Honorable Scythe Faraday, I'm sorry, I didn't know. The girl would step away as to distance herself from him. Best of luck today, he told them with a magnanimous gesture they didn't deserve. Thank you, said the girl, but if I may say, luck plays no part. We've both trained long and hard, and have been taught well by our Scythes. Very true, Faraday said, and then nodded respectful goodbyes that bordered us on bows and left. After they were gone, Faraday turned to Rowan and Citra. The girl will get her rig today, he said. The boy will be denied. How do you know? Asked Rowan. I have friends in the bejewelling community. The boy is smart, but too quick to anger. It's a fatal flaw that cannot be tolerated. As annoying as Rowan found the kid, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity. This happens to be apprentices that get denied. They return to their families to take up life where they left off. But life can be the same after a year of training in the Scythe, Rowan pointed out. True, said Faraday, but only good can come from a keen understanding of what it takes to be a Scythe. Rowan nodded, but thought for a man of such wisdom that seemed very naive. The Scythe training was a scarring endeavor, purposely so, but it was scarring nonetheless. The rotunda came increasingly crowded with the Scythes, and marble walls, floor, and dome made voices echo into the cacophony. Rowan tried to hear more individual conversations, but they were lost in the din. Faraday had told them that the great bonds doors of the assembly room would open promptly at 7 a.m., and the Scythes would be dismissed at the stroke of 7 p.m. 12 hours to accomplish any and all business. Anything left undone would have to wait 4 months until the next conclave. In the early days, Faraday told them as the doors opened to admit the throng, a conclave would last 3 days, but they discovered that after the first day it became a little more arguments and posturing. Well, there's still plenty of that, and it's circulated, but it behooves us all that we move through the agenda quickly. The chamber is a huge semicircle with large wooden rotunda. At the front there was a high blade sat, and slightly lower seats at either side of the conclave clerk, who kept records, and the parliamentarian, who interpreted rules and procedures if any questions arose. Scythe Faraday had told them enough about power structure of the Scythedom for Rowan to know that much. The first order of business, once everyone was settled, was the tolling of the names. One by one, in no particular order, the Scythes became in the front and recite varied names of people they had gleaned over the past 4 months. We can't recite them all, Scythe Faraday told them, which over 300 Scythes, it would be more than 26,000 names. So we choose 10. The ones we most remember, the ones who died most valiantly, the ones whose lives are most notable. After each name was spoken, an iron bell was rung, solemn and resonant. Rowan was pleased to hear Scythe Faraday reciting Cole Whitlock's name as one of his chosen 10. The tolling of the names got old very quickly for Citra. Even reduced to 10 names each, the procession lasted almost 2 hours. It was noble for the Scythes saw fit to pay homage to the glean, but if they only had 12 hours to complete 3 months' worth of business, she didn't see a sense of it. There was no written agenda, so there was no way for her and Rowan to know what came next. And Scythe Faraday only explained things as they happened. When is our test? Will we be taken somewhere else for it? Citra asked, but Faraday shushed her. After tolling of the names, the next order of business was ceremonial washing of the hands. The Scythes all rose and lined up before 2 basins, one on either side of the rostrum. Again, Citra didn't see the point. All this ritual, it's like something you'd see in a tone cult, he said when Faraday returned to his seat, hands still damp. Faraday leaned over to her and whispered, don't let any of the other Scythes hear you say that. Do you feel clean after sticking your hands in water that 100 other hands have been in? Faraday sighed. It brings solace. It binds us as a community. Do not belittle our traditions, because one day they may be yours. Or not, gloated Rowan. Citra shifted uncomfortably and grumbled. It just seems like a waste of time. Faraday must have known her real gripe was not knowing when they would have presented to the conclave and taken away for the test. Citra was not a girl who would endure being in the dark for too long. Perhaps that's why Faraday made sure that she was. It was constantly poking at their weaknesses. Next number of Scythes were singled out for showing bias in their gleanings. This held some sort of interest for Citra, and gave her some insight as to how it all worked behind the scenes. One Scythe had gleaned too few wealthy people. She was reprimanded and assigned to only glean the rich between now and the next conclave. Another Scythe was found to have ratio issues, high in Hispanic, low in Afric. It's due to demographic where I live, he pleaded. People have higher percentage Hispanic in their personal ratios. High-blade Xenocres was not swayed. Then cast a wider net, he said. Glean elsewhere. He was charged in bringing his ratios back into line or face being disciplined, which consisted of having future gleanings pre-approved in the selection committee, having one's freedom to glean taken away, the humiliation that no Scythe wanted. 16 Scythes were taken to task, 10 were warned, 6 were disciplined. The oddest situation was the Scythe who was far too pretty for his own good. He was called out for the gleaning many unattractive people. What an idea, one of the other Scythes shouted out. Imagine that a world it would be if we gleaned only ugly people. That brought alarmed laughter from the rest of the room. The Scythe tried to defend himself, claiming the old adage, Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but the high blade wasn't buying it. This is apparently the third such offense, so he was given permanent probation. He could live as a scythe, but could not glean. Until the next reptilian year, the side blade proclaimed. That's crazy, Citra commented, not just loud enough for Rowan and Faraday to hear. No one knows what animal's future years will be named after. I mean, the last reptilian year was the rear of a gecko, and that was before I was born. Precisely, said Faraday, with a little bit of guilty glee, which means the punishment would end next year or never. Now he'll spend the time lobbying the office of Calendaria for the name a year after a shrink, or Gilia monster, a sort of the reptile that's not been used. Before they moved on the disciplinary portion of the morning, there was one more scythe to be called out. It wasn't a matter of bias, however. I have before me an anonymous note, the Highblade said. It accuses Honorable Scythe Godford of malfeasance. A rumble throughout the room. Citra saw Scythe Goddard whisper in his inner circle of companions, then stood. Of what sort of malice am I being accused? Unnecessary cruelty in your gleaning. And yet this accusation comes anonymously, said Goddard. I cannot believe that a fellow Scythe would show such cowardice. I demand that accuser reveal his or herself. More rumbles around the room. No one stood up. No one took responsibility. Well then, said Goddard, I refuse to answer to an invisible accuser. Citra expected Highblade Socrates to press the issue. After all, an accusation of a fellow Scythe should be taken seriously. But the Highblade put a paper down and said, well, if there's nothing more, we'll take our mid-morning break. And the Scythes, Earth's grand bringers of death, began to file in the rotunda for donuts and coffee. Once they were in the rotunda, Faraday leaned close to Citra and Rowan and said, there's no anonymous accuser. I'm sure that Scythe Goddard accused himself. Why would he do that? Asked Citra. To take the steam out of his enemies. It's the oldest trick in the book. Now anyone who accuses him will assume to be a cowardly anonymous accuser. No one would go after him now. Rowan found himself less interested in the stagecraft and parrying in the assembly room as he was the things that went on outside of it. He was already getting the feeling for the scythedom and how it truly worked. The most important business did not occur with the bronze doors, but the rotunda and dim alcoves of the building, of which there were many, probably for the exact purpose. The early morning conversations had just been a small talk, but now, the day progressed, Rowan could see the number of scythes congregating during this break into small clutches, doing side deals, building alliances, pushing secret agendas. He overheard one group that was planning to propose a ban on remote detonators as a method of gleaning, not only for ethical reason, but because the gun lobby would make a sizable contribution to a particular scythe. Another group was trying to groom one of the younger scythes for a position in the selection committee, so that she may sway gleaning choices and they needed the choices swayed. Power politics might have been a thing in the past elsewhere, but it's alive, seething in the scythedom. Their mentor did not join any of the plotters. Faraday remained solitary and above petty politics, but had perhaps half of the scythes. We know the schemes of the schemers, he told Rowan and Citra as he negotiated Jelly Donut. They only get their way when the rest of us want them to. Rowan made it a point to observe Scythe Goddard. Many scythes approached him to talk, others grumbled to him under his breath. The entourage of junior scythes a mid-cultural bunch, and the old-school meaning of the word. While no one had pristine ethogenetics anymore, his inner circle showed traits that leaned toward the ethnos or another. A girl in green seemed mildly Pan-Asian, and the man in yellow had Afric leanings. The one in fiery orange was cascoid as could be. He himself leaned slightly toward the Hispanic. He was clearly a scythe who wanted high visibility. Even his grand gesture of ethnic balance was a visible one. Although Goddard never turned to look, Rowan had the distinct feeling he knew Rowan was watching him. For the rest of the morning, proposals were made and hotly debated in the assembly room. As Scythe Faraday had said, the schemers only prevailed when the more high-minded body of the scythedom allowed. The ban on remote detonators was adopted, not because of the bribes from the gun lobby, but because blowing people up was determined to be crude, cruel, and beneath the scythedom. And the young scythe put forth for membership in the selection committee was voted down, because no one in the committee should be in anyone's pocket. Should like to be on a scythe committee one day, Rowan said. Citra looked at him oddly. Why are you talking like Faraday? Rowan shrugged. When in Rome, we're not in Rome, she reminded him. If we're here, we'd have a much cooler place for a conclave. Bro, local restaurants vied for a chance to crater the conclave, so lunch was a buffet out of the rotunda, even more scrumptious than the one at breakfast. And Faraday packed his plate, which was out of character for him. I don't think ill of him, Scythe told Rowan, and Citra, her voice mellifluous, yet sharp at the same time. For those of us who take our vow of austerity seriously, conclave is the only time we allow ourselves the luxury of fine food and drink. It reminds us that we're human. Citra, who had a one-trick mind, took this opportunity to get information. When will the apprentices be tested, she asked. Scythe smirked and brushed back her silver hair. The ones who are hoping to receive the ring today were tested last night. As for all the others, you'll be tested soon enough, she said. Citra's frustration made Rowan snicker, which earned him a glare from Citra. Just shut up and stuff your face, she said. Rowan was happy to oblige. As focused as Citra was on the upcoming test, she began to wonder if the conclave she would miss when the apprentices were taken to testing. Like Rowan, she found conclave to be education like none other. There are few people beyond Scythes and apprentices who ever witnessed this, and those others who had caught only a glimpse, such as the stirring of salespeople after lunch, who were each given 10 minutes to expand the virtues of some weapon or poison they were trying to sell the Scythedom, or more importantly, the weapons master, who had the final decision over the Scythedom purchase. They sounded like those awful people in the info hologram. It dices, it slices, but wait, there's more. And one salesperson was selling a digital poison that would turn the healing nanites in a person's bloodstream into hungry little bastards that would devour the victim from the inside out in less than a minute. He actually used the word victim, which immediately soured the Scythes. He was flatly dismissed by the weapon master. There was the most successful salesperson offering a product that's called Touch of Quietude, which sounded like more of a feminine hygiene product than a death delivery system. The woman selling it displayed a small pill, but not to give the subject the pill was for the Scythe. Stick it in the water, and within seconds your fingers will secrete a transdimensional poison. Anyone who you touch for the next hour will be instantly and painlessly cleaned. The weapons master was so impressed he came up to the stage and took a dose. Then, in the ultimate demonstration, proceeded to glean the saleswoman. She sold 50 vials of this stuff, and the Scythedom humorously. The rest of this afternoon consisted of more discussion, arguments, and votes about policy. Scythe Faraday only found fit to voice an opinion once. Then it came the forming of the immunity committee. It seems clear to me that there will be oversight for the granting of immunity. Just as selection of committee provides oversight for gleaning. Rowan and Citra were pleased to see the opinion carried a great deal of weight. Several Scythes who had immediately voted against the forming immunity committee switching their vote. However, a final tally was taken. High Blade Zinacres announced that the time had run out for legislative issues. The subject will be top of our agenda for the next conclave, he announced. A number of Scythe applauded, but several rose up and shouted at their grievous discontent at the issue being tabled. Scythe Faraday did not voice his own displeasure. He took a long breath in and out. Interesting was all he said. This might have plunged loudly in Rowan and Citra's radar. The High Blade not immediately announced that the next order of business was the apprentices. Citra found herself wanting to grip Rowan's hand in anticipation and squeeze it was all bloodless, but she restrained herself. Rowan, on the other hand, followed the mentor's lead. He took a deep breath in and out and tried to let his anxiety wash from him. He had studied all he could study, learned all he could learn. All he would do now as best he could do. If he failed today, there would be more than enough chances to redeem himself. Good luck, Rowan said to Citra. You too, she muttered. Let's make Scythe Faraday proud. Rowan smiled and thought the Faraday might smile at Citra as well, but he didn't. He just kept against the Zinacres. Crowdies. First, the candidates of Scythedom were called up. There were 4 whose apprenticeships were now complete. Having said their final test the evening before, there was nothing left to ordain them, or not. As the case may be, word was there of the 5th candidate who failed the final test last night. He or she wasn't invited to conclave. 3 rings were brought out, resting on the red velvet pillows. 4 looked at one another now, aware that even though they passed their final test, one of them would not be ordained and was sent home in shame. Scythe Faraday turned to the Scythe beside him and said, Only one Scythe gleaned himself since the last conclave, and yet 3 are being confirmed today. Has his population grown too drastically in 3 months that we need 2 additional Scythes? And 3 chosen apprentices were called out, one of the Scythe Manella, who presided over the jeweling committee. As each knelt before him, he said something about each of them in turn, and he handed them their rings, which they slipped on their fingers and held to show the conclave, which responded for each of them the obligatory applause. Then they announced their patron historic, the luminary from history, whom they had named themselves after. The conclave applauded at each announcement, accepting Scythes Goodall, Schrodinger, and Colbert into the Mid-American Scythedom. Then the 3 had left the stage. A hot-tempered boy remained. Just as Scythe Faraday had said earlier, he stood alone and the applause died down. Then Scythe Mandela said, Ransom Palladini, we have chosen not to ordain you as a Scythe. Wherever life leads you, we wish you well. You are dismissed. He lingered for a few minutes, as if thinking he might be a joke, or maybe one final test. Then his lips pursed, his face turned red, and he strode quickly up the center aisle in silence. But through the heavy bronze doors, their hinges complaining the exit. How awful, said Citra. At least they should applaud him for trying. There are no accolades for the unworthy, Faraday said. One of us will exit that way, Rowan pointed out her. He resolved that if it was him, he would take his time going down that aisle. He'd make eye contact and nod as many Scythes as he could on his way out. Where he would be ejected, he would leave the final conclave with dignity. The remaining apprentices may now come forward. said Xenocrease. Roan and Citra rose, ready to face whatever Scythe had in store for them. I do believe people still fear death, but only 1 in 100th as much as they used to. I say that because based on the current quotas, a person's chance to be gleaned within the next 100 years is only 1%. I mean, the chances that a child is born today will be gleaned between now and their 5,000th year on Earth is only 50%. Of course, since we no longer count the years numerically, aside from children and adolescents, no one knows how old anyone is anymore. Sometimes not even themselves. These days, people roughly know within a decade or two. At the writing of this, I can tell you that I am somewhere between 160 and 180 years old. Although I don't enjoy looking my age, like everyone else, I turn the corner on occasion and set my biological age back substantially. But like many Scythes, I don't set it back past the age of 40. Only Scythes that are actually young like to look young. To date, the oldest living human is somewhere between 300 and, but only because we are still so close to age mortality. I wonder what life will be like a millennium from now, when the average age will be near to 1,000. Will we all Renaissance children, skilled at every art and science because we had the time to master them? Or will boredom and slavish routine plague us even more than it does today, giving us less a reason to live limitless lives? I dream of the former, but suspect the latter. From the Greening Journal of H.S. Curie. I guess it depends with humans and how we truly do and don't evolve. If truly if immortality would cause boredom and then cause death again or not. Such a weird thing to think. Anyways, today we read pages 125 to 144, or 19 pages. Next time we'll be reading pages 145 to 174, chapters 14 to... Okay, get out of my way. No, not that one. Chapters 14 to 17. I don't know why you're there. So yeah, we're going to have 3 breaks next episode and only be reading 19... Nope. How many pages is that? Well, let's see. 29. Oh. So tomorrow's going to be the second longest episode. Cool. Anyways, what's even more cool is that we have a new type part of the section. So it's time for... Reading Corner of the Day, doing it up Stonsey's way, Bop. Today we are doing the first episode of the Terrier Group. The Terrier Group is a brand new section of the dogs in this book. It's comprised of, let's count them together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yep, 24. 24 different breeds of dogs. All terriers, apparently. So let me give you the quick description of the Terrier Group. Dogs of the Terrier Group have in common the proclivity to kill rodents and vermin, often by digging or going around after them. The word terrier, in fact, refers to earth or terra. Some terriers are developed apart to kill rats in pit contests, and later to fight against each other. The vermin-catching terriers are roughly divided into long-legged or short-legged breeds. Now, the breed that we'll be talking about today is the Airedale Terrier. Man. Cool looking dog. Old looking dog. It looks like a dog we read in the working group, to be honest. Oh, God. Why am I so tired? I don't know why I feel so tired today. You're an idiot. You're stupid and an idiot. Hope you know that. Sorry. One of my cats fell down on himself, and now he's meowing because he's like, oh, what did I do? He's just stupid. But before I should make fun of or call anything stupid, really, I should learn of its history. Not only does it make me smarter in front of my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, or my... I don't know, I'm running out of things in this room. Curtains. but it makes me more intelligent. Now, intelligence doesn't necessarily lie in just knowing things. It also lies in knowing and teaching them to others. That's why some of the smartest people you ever meet are teachers or doctors. Though there's some teachers that ain't smart, but there's also doctors that aren't smart. So, the history of the Airedale Terrier is that it's known as the king of terriers. The Airedale is the tallest terrier. Like many terriers, it counts as Old English or black and tan. Terrier is one of the primary progenitors. These medium-sized dogs are prized of Yorkshire hunters and poachers for hunting a variety of game from water rat to fox. The dogs are also fine to retrieve birds. Around the mid-1800s, some of these terriers around the River Aire in South Yorkshire were crossed with otter hounds in order to improve the hunting ability around water, as well as their scenting ability. The result in the dog adept for other hunting, originally called the Bingley or Waterside Terrier, but recognized as the Airedale Terrier in 1878. As they enter the world as a show dog, crosses the Irish Bull and Terriers were made in order to breed away some of the remembrance of the otter hound cross that were now considered less than beautiful. By 1900, the patriarch of the breed, champion Master Briar, was gaining renown as his offspring carried on its influence in America. The Airedale's size and gameness continued to win it worldwide fame as a hunter, even proving itself as a big game hunter. Its smart looks and manners won it a place as police dog and family pet, both roles it still enjoys. After World War I, however, its popularity declined, and today its reputation is greater than its numbers. So what's the temperament? How do I have this Airedale Terrier in my home? Well, the temperament of the Airedale Terrier is that among most of the vertical terriers, the Airedale is bold, playful, and adventurous. It's lively yet protective companion, and it's intelligent but often stubborn and headstrong. Some of the domineering but most babblable, reliable, and responsive to their owner's wishes. It makes a good house dog as long as it gets daily mental and physical exercise. It likes to be the head dog and may not do well with any other dog challenges the position, although they usually get along well with smaller dogs. So what's the upkeep? How do I keep this Airedale Terrier in check? Well, the upkeep is that it's an active breed that needs the chance to get vigorous exercise every day. It needs to be met with a long walk or strenuous game, or a chance to hunt and romp in the safe area. It can live outside in temperate climates, but it's better suited for indoor sleeping. Its wire coat needs combing twice weekly, plus scissoring and shaping, clipping for pets and hand stripping for show dogs. Every 1 or 2 months, clipping will layer the texture and color. Ears often need gluing as puppies in order to ensure proper shape as adults. Now, if you're a child, please cover your ears. If you're an adult or teenager who owns an Airedale Terrier, please listen up. Their major concerns are CHD, minor concerns are gastric torsion and hyperthyroidism. They're occasionally seen with colonic disease. The suggested tests are for the hip and thyroid. Their lifespan is 10 to 13 years. Now, imagine you don't see these in front of you. What's the form? What's the function? What do they look like? Well, the Airedale Terrier is neat, upstanding, long-legged terrier, not exaggerated in any way. Strong round bone and combined strength and agility enable it to hunt the game. Its jaws are strong and punching. Gait is free and its coat is hard, dense, and wiry. It lies straight and closed, with some hair crinkling or waving. Now, for the final part of today's episode is the tier list. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is worse, and 1 is the worst unless it comes to grooming. God, my throat is just dry today, and I don't know why. Energy levels out of 4. Exercise requirements are out of 3. Affection levels out of 3. Playfulness is out of 4. Friendliness towards dogs out of 1. Friendliness towards pets is out of 2. And friendliness towards strangers out of 3. Ease of training is also out of 3. Watchdog ability, protection ability, and sadly, grooming requirements are all out of 4. Cold and heat tolerance are out of 3, so average. Weight is about 55 pounds for both male and female Airedale Terriers. And the height of the average male Airedale Terrier is 23 inches. And for a female, it's just put down a slightly less. Which is good, because if it were feet, we'd be living in a world of giants. It's just kind of like a bulldog, to be honest. But it's not a bulldog, it's a terrier type. The next dog we'll be talking about is the one we'll be talking about in the next episode. So, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. I'm going to go take a lozenge, because for some reason my throat hurts. And I don't know why. And I'll see you guys next time.